Welcome back to Combat Mission Shock Force 2, where we are taking a look at the NATO module's German Gebirgsjaeger platoons. These are mountain troops, though in the context of Shock Force they ride around in Fuchs armoured personnel carriers. They're a nice interesting TOE in the Western style, which is a nice change after all those BMPs. Diving right in, our basic individual weapon is the G36. This is a pretty standard modern assault rifle chambered for 5.56 NATO. A key feature is the integrated sight unit. This contains both an unmagnified red dot and a 3.4 times optic and sits at the rear of the carrying handle. At the time the G36 was adopted, this was a solid feature. By SF2's 2008, the optics are getting a bit outdated. One of the problems with integrating something like this is that it's harder to replace when something better comes along, which is why everything is covered in Picatinny rails these days. The platoon is split into sections of 8 men, made up of 2 identical fire teams consisting of a section leader with G36, a light machine gunner with an MG4, a grenadier with an AG-36 40mm grenade launcher attached to his G36, and an anti-tank specialist carrying a Panzerfaust 3 IT. The MG4 is pretty much Heckler & Koch's equivalent of the FN Mini-Me, the M249 SAW. It's got a lot of similar features. It's belt fed, it's got a quick change barrel, it's got a bipod, etc. The version in Shock Force looks like it has the same carry handle integrated optic arrangement as the G36 slapped on top. It's missing the red dot, but having a 3.4 times optic on a SAW or LMG is good stuff. In a similar vein, the AG-36 underbarrel grenade launcher is broadly equivalent to the M203 or M320 grenade launchers in US service. The Germans don't carry any HETP grenades for it though, just high explosive. The Panzerfaust 3 IT we've covered before. It's a shoulder-fired reusable anti-tank weapon that operates in a similar vein to the familiar RPG-7, though it has some considerably more modern features like laser rangefinder, targeting computer, night vision, tandem heat warheads as standard, and a countermass system that allows it to be fired indoors without roasting the gunner. Maximum range is 600 meters, and it can take on any Syrian army armour in the Shock Force context. So we have a good mix of weapons in our fire teams. Obviously they double up in our 8-man sections. Individual soldiers have body armour and night vision, section and fire team leaders have radios and binoculars. In terms of ammunition, each section carries a faintly ridiculous 4,060 rounds of 5.56, 40 40mm HE grenades for the AG-36s, and 1 Panzerfaust 3 rocket for each launcher. It's not quite as simple as all this though. The 3rd and 4th sections in the platoon follow this organisation. The 2nd section A team is slightly different, with the MG4 being replaced by an MG3, and the anti-tank specialist being replaced with a bog-standard rifleman who is presumably carrying the MG3's extra ammunition. If the MG3 looks suspiciously familiar, that's because it's the modernised version of the MG42 from the Second World War. The main change is that it's been rechambered for 7.62 NATO. In the Gebirgsjaeger sections it's operating in the light roll with just the bipod. This allows the section to reach out beyond the effective range of their 5.56 weapons, and the MG3's blistering rate of fire tends to be very effective at suppressing the enemy. The 2nd squad obviously has a slightly different ammo load. They only have 2,660 rounds of 5.56, but 900 rounds of 7.62 for the MG3. That's the platoon's 2nd, 3rd and 4th sections. The 1st section is a kind of combination HQ and weapons section. They're split by default and you can't merge them. The platoon HQ is basically a standard fire team with a radio operator replacing the MG4. The 1st section B team is a 2-man GMG team. The weapon in question is the Heckler & Koch grenade machine gun. This needs to be set up on a tripod before firing, but this is a very quick process in SF2. It only takes 9 seconds to deploy and 16 to pack up. The GMG has a range of 2,200 meters, but at least man-packed at platoon level, it doesn't really have the ammunition to support that kind of engagement range. The team only carries 64 40x53mm grenades, and although they don't span them like the US Pixel Treppen do with their Mark 19s, they're still going to run out of ammunition very quickly. That said, there are 2 flavours to their ammunition, the usual high explosive round and air bursting high explosive, or ABHE. It looks like there's a typo or autocorrect error for the ammunition, at least for me, because it labels the ABHE as Abbott, which it is not. ABHE is very effective against light targets, even if they're behind walls or in trenches, though it's worth remembering that 40mm is only a small round, so body armour can do a lot to mitigate the shrapnel it puts out. The GMG team carries 32 rounds of ABHE and 32 rounds of HE, both of which come in 16-round ammo cans. Each section rides around in a Fuchs APC. These are basically fully enclosed 6-wheel trucks. They're proof against small arms fire, but that's about it. Though they do have some smoke launchers, these will put down a non-thermal blocking smoke screen about 50 meters ahead of the vehicle. Perhaps surprisingly, the Fuchs did not have a good time on the vehicle mobility test. It got an overall score of 667, actually a little worse than the BTR 60PB at 647. A key caveat here is that the Fuchs struggled with the ground test. It bogged 11 times and one vehicle failed to complete because it got immobilized in the mud. There is a degree of randomness to this, so it might just have been a bad run, but it did also get bogged down driving across the crater field, so maybe not. The Fuchs is a much older vehicle design than it looks. There are more modern variants out there, but as far as I can tell, this isn't one of them. It's the original Fuchs 1, which entered service in 1979. So it isn't some kind of nimble cross-country vehicle. Basically a truck is probably a very accurate description. It does manage to be amphibious though. We have a boat-shaped hull and some propellers at the back. There are 2 crew who sit in a cab up front, driver on the left and commander/gunner on the right. They both have side doors, but the gunner also has a top hatch fitted with an MG3. This does not have 360 degrees of rotation. It can only cover an arc to the vehicle's front, and although it's fitted with a gun shield, I wouldn't put a lot of confidence in that. Dismounts enter and exit via doors at the back. There's space for 8 passengers, plus the usual array of extra ammunition, more than 2,000 rounds each of 5.56 and 7.62, another 88 40x46mm high explosive grenades, and 3 more rockets for the Panzerfausts. Notably missing is any extra ammunition for the GMG, which is a bit of a bummer. So that's a quick once-over of the German Gebirgsjaeger and their Fuchs APCs as modelled in Shock Force 2. The dismounts have a pretty standard Western-style TOE, with a little extra firepower thrown in by the MG3 and the GMG team, which should lead to a fairly organic split between base of fire and assault elements. They will probably need some extra firepower. The Fuchs are definitely not combat vehicles. It's the dismounts that they're going to be doing all the heavy lifting. I think they'll have an interesting time tackling the Platoon patrol. I'll leave a link to their run down below when it goes live. In the meantime, thanks for watching. If you'd like to see these videos early and support the channel, you can do so via Patreon and YouTube memberships. Whether you do or not, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.